Hi everybody, my name is Elizaveta and I would like to talk to you today about axis and how axis functions in partner dancing, especially in Argentine tango. Finding your axis is something that tango dancers get instructed on a lot, but a lot of times there's confusion about what really axis is and whether you have it or not. So this little video is meant to be kind of like a little bit of a Cliff Notes version of what I've been teaching in my technique classes. And it's also a review for those of you who've been coming to class, and so I hope it's helpful to you to practice some of these things at home so that you can get a better sense of your own body and how your body balances in tango in a partner dance. One good way to begin to explore the pelvic alignment for building the axis in your dance is to use a chair. So what you want to do is you want to sit towards the edge of the chair, which encourages your pelvis to be in neutral position. If you sit deep into a chair, this tends to happen. So you want to sit towards the edge and you want to have your feet hips width apart. Okay? You want to be mindful that you have full use of your feet. You have the ability to push into all parts of your feet. So from here, I'm going to feel where my pelvis is, and if you kind of have a sense that you're confused where you are in your pelvis or where you should be, I encourage you to practice this. Roll your pelvis forward all the way as much as you can and feel that you've come in front of your sit bones. So there's going to be more softness here. Right? Not so bony. You'll feel your belly is kind of protruding forward. You'll feel your back is really arched and your chest might even kind of puff out, right? So this is the pelvis forward. Now do the opposite and roll the pelvis back as much as you can. So really rolling it back. And here you'll find, again, there's some more softness, so not bony there, hopefully. And you want to feel that your spine wants to roll in this direction, so flexing the spine, right? So then I want you to come back and find the middle, right? Find the space that's in the middle of that. And what you'll find is that there's some bony parts, right? Sit bones. You're going to find them. And your pelvis is kind of like just very comfortable. Your spine can be straight up. You're not doing this. And you're not puffing out. It's neutral. So from neutral position, this is your axis. This is it. This is what we're wanting here. And this is what we want to build awareness around. So I have my axis in my pelvis. I'm going to begin by imagining a roll coming into my body. And it's like I'm wrapping my ribs around this roll that's coming in. And then I allow myself to come forward. Come forward as much as is comfortable. And at this point, I am not on the bony parts of my pelvis anymore. I've come forward enough that I'm actually towards the front. So here, I've come here, I breathe for a moment. I'm going to press into the ground to initiate the movement, right? To really feel it pressing the floor away from you. My legs are slightly active. Right? They're not tense, but they're definitely engaging here. They're contributing. So I'm going to press to engage the movement, and I'm going to look for my pelvis to find those sit bones, to find where it is that it's like, okay, this is it. This is where I need to be. Right? So I'm going to test it out. I'm going to see, okay, is it here? Is it here? Okay, this is way too far. This is still, but not far enough, so I'm looking. And so here for me, this feels like it. This feels like it. So at this point, my pelvis is set. I don't need to move the pelvis anymore. Then, the rest of the spine, I'm going to begin to tighten these rubber bands in the back to pull up the spine and stack the rest of the spine on top of my pelvis. And if you really are attentive, there's this really nice sensation that when I'm actually rolling the spine, I feel more weight added to my pelvis, right? So another way to think about it. It's like you keep adding, you keep adding. So from this position, my pelvis is a particular density. I feel that it's on the chair, but it's slightly kind of lifting off the chair, you know, because I haven't put my weight fully into that spot. And then I little by little begin to stack my spine on top of that foundation. And so here I feel I got a little bit heavier into the chair. And then a little bit more, I'm like, oh, okay, even heavier, now even more. And then little by little, I come up. And then I feel the full weight of my torso resting into the axis. Now, one thing to watch out for, and this happens a lot, is that once you find your alignment here, there's a very, very common tendency to come up the rest of the way here. So once again, that works, right? But I'm not actually feeling that I'm using the floor. I'm just using the muscular tension of my back. And this is actually difficult. It's a little bit difficult here. I'm having to use my back muscles, right? So I want you to really focus that when you're pressing into the ground and you're coming up, that you have this image that you're being rolled out. You're being rolled out until you come to your axis. So with the feet really planted well into the ground, I want you to think about this image of the sit bones being connected to your heels. We're going to start with hips width apart, feet hips width apart. And I want you to imagine that you have a roll coming in and your spine is going like a chain on a gear is going to wrap around that roll. So you're going to kind of cave in and wrap. So this is the first position here. This. Now be very careful that when you do this, you don't do this. Here, I've actually changed the position of my pelvis. So we don't want to do that. We want to wrap the spine around. And here I'm beginning this rolling action, but my pelvis is actually still in the same position and I'm ready to jump. I'm still very buoyant, right? So here, I'm going to begin to round over this kind of cylindrical form, and I'm going to keep using this imagery to round myself forward, and I'm going to come down to whatever position is comfortable for me. So for some of you with tighter hamstrings, I encourage you to bend the knees. I encourage you to stay soft, right? I'm not looking for a stretch here. This is not like stretching exercise. This is really about finding core, finding axis exercise. So here I'm going to come down, and then when I begin to press back, I'm going to press into the floor. I'm going to feel that I'm pressing the floor away from me again to move the floor, not to move my body, but to move the floor. So I'm going to press up, and I'm going to look for the moment when my pelvis finds that alignment where I can build the rest of my axis. So here I'm going to press up, and right about here, I feel that, okay, I feel where my pelvic floor was when I was standing up. So from this point on, I'm going to use my back muscles to stack the rest of my spine up onto the axis. So a little bit faster motion, once again. You're going to first round, lengthening your back, keeping the pelvis at first in the same position. So really just finding that action in the upper body. Then allow yourself to begin to come down. Maybe you come down here, maybe a little bit lower. Here, I'll go down a little bit lower. Now, as I'm in this position, I haven't let go of any of my core. I haven't relaxed into the position. So this is important because we don't want to jar the body by relaxing completely and then charging it with this task of coming back up. So instead, I keep a tension in my muscles here. I'm not fully relaxed.
Then I begin to press the floor away from me. Press the floor away from me. I'm pressing, pressing, pressing. I'm looking for my pelvis to find the position where I find the base of my axis in my torso. So then it's about right here. I feel, okay, things have aligned. So from now, I'm still pushing the floor, but now I'm going to stack the spine on top. Little by little, rounding up.
Now, I'm going through this pretty slowly because one of the things that happens a lot, most of the time, something happens in our alignment of the pelvis to come up instead of using this idea of stacking the axis. So what happens is one of two things. From this position, you might find, okay, here I have the stability, and then instead of allowing this to gradually stack on top, you might use your back muscles to just come up. So slow motion, this would look like from here. Here I found my base, but then the upper spine doesn't follow through, and instead we might go into an extension here and then come here. So that's one thing that might happen. The other thing that might happen is that from this position, as I come up, I might change the alignment of my pelvis to push forward, which will then bring me up. Which might be a stylization for a cool dance move at some point, but for now, it doesn't serve us. Because the moment I lock my pelvis forward here, I am not very stable. So the rest of my axis builds up much slower. So I first have to straighten up here, and then I have to bring my pelvis here, and then I have to, kind of reconfigure everything. Once you come up, so I've just rolled up, and I find my axis, I have my knees slightly softened, I feel those rubber bands, right? I feel my feet, I'm right in the center of my feet, right? Then from there, just move your weight a little bit forward, not much. With the knees soft, you don't need to. And then begin to come up. So we're going to press up gently, pressing up. Legs will straighten but not lock because I want to feel that my pelvis is still aligned. So locking the knees will make it difficult. From here, I'm relaxed. I'm relaxed in my arms. I'm ready. I'm ready to go, right? I'm not locked up anywhere. That's very important. So you feel I'm shaky. This is challenging, but I have control. My core muscles are all kind of like, it's like they're playing strings. One tightens, the other one loosens to keep me upright. So shaking is very common here, and that's okay. So from here, you might try this a few times, going up and down. You might do it a little bit faster just to get this memory into your body. Try to do it without the wall. There's a tendency to say, well, I can't balance on my toes, so I'm just going to go to the wall. Instead, just don't go so high, right? So I might just go up onto my toes a little bit. Just get the heels off the ground and feel this. Relax everywhere else. And then release, right? So then you've come up as much as you need to. Maybe you go up higher, you stay longer, maybe you look to your left, right? And then you maybe look to your right. And the whole time you're feeling this intention of keeping the pelvis aligned. This is your axis. How are you keeping your axis? You're using all of your muscles in the legs, the pelvis, the core, right? Everything here is relaxed. You're not using your arms. You're not using your shoulders. Everything here is independent. And then you come down. So the final, most challenging part of this exercise is to put in a roll in the position where you're all the way up onto your toes. Okay? So we're going to come up, gently pushing the floor away from us, feeling the pelvic floor, feeling your core, everything else, the axis of your spine. The spine is stacked on top of itself. And then I want you to look down. Just gently. Look down, and then gently come up. You'll notice that when you lower your head, you might have an instinct to push your pelvis forward or back. Especially on this moment here, I'll show you. When I want to bring my head forward, I want to do this. So you might have the same instinct. That's a really good way for you to feel what muscles have to hold and what muscles have to release in order for the axis to stay stable. So here, when my head is down, the head is pretty heavy, right? The rest of my body is holding the axis. Where am I going to get the strength to pull up my head? Here, I have to once again think of this stacking. I have to use the muscles of my back and pushing the floor in order to lift my head and not lose my axis, right? So once again, we're going to come up. I'm going to look down. Relax the shoulders. Pushing the floor. And then from here, as if something in the back, there's some rubber bands in the back, they're going to tighten. They're slowly going to pull your head up. And then you come down. And then once you've tried this a few times and you're successful, then you can go lower. So you come up, you look down, and then maybe you allow yourself to come down a little bit further. Here, very important, the pelvis stays in the same position. And again, here, I ground into the floor, and I begin to stack the spine on top of each other without moving my pelvis. And then I come down. And you see, it's a bit of a challenge for me to keep talking and do it at the same time. There's a lot of shaking, which is fine. Shaking is just the signal that your body is doing something it's challenged with, and so that's to be expected. So the full sequence, if you'd like to practice, this is a really wonderful exercise to drill your body to recognize your axis. And how is this important? Well, when you have another body connected to you, and let's say your partner is pushing and pulling you, maybe they don't know where their axis is, maybe they're trying to do something new, and they don't really know how to make it happen. How do you keep your body safe? Well, your instinct, your brain should react by establishing your axis, using your core muscles, using your feet, and holding it, right? So that if somebody pushes me in a way that's really not safe for my body, or pivots me too much, I should have a response. My brain should fire and respond by bringing me into alignment for my axis. And for that to happen, we need to train that memory, right? So it's not something you're going to be able to recall with your thoughts while you're dancing. It's something that has to be a response. So I encourage you to practice something like this several times a week, maybe spend 5 minutes. Once again, awareness here. I'm pressing into the floor, my feet are spreading. I have my rubber bands attached from my sit bones to the heels. I begin by feeling this roll, this big roll that's coming into my body, and it's making my spine wrap like a chain around a gear. And then I begin to descend, but I descend not by letting go, but I'm still pushing in the floor. The pushing of the floor is keeping me buoyant. I'm still ready. I'm ready to jump. Here I go down as low as is appropriate for me, as low as I still feel balanced, right? I'm not letting go completely, but I'm soft. Here, it's soft. Then I get ready and I press into the ground, right? I press the floor away from me. I begin to come up. I'm looking for that place where my pelvis has found its base, where I feel the tightness in the back of my legs. Those rubber bands are in the correct alignment. They're right over my heels. And then I allow the rest of my body to stack on top of the base. Keeping the knees slightly soft, I then only need to shift forward a tiny bit to get that feeling of buoyancy in my feet, and I can begin to press up. I keep my pelvis aligned the same way. Same way. I pause here. I look down. Maybe I go down a little bit more. Soft in the back. Then without shifting the pelvis, I begin to come up. Come back all the way. And then gently come down.